You are listening to Key to the Bridge, brought to you by your friends at Keystone Therapy and Training Services, where we will be sharing human stories, talking about community resources, mental health, and wellness. This is a podcast for everyone. Welcome. All right. Well, I'm very excited. Welcome to Key to the Bridge. And I get to have, I feel like right now we're just on a series of getting to talk to old friends. Not that we're old, but that we've been together for a really long time as friends. I mean, we're creeping on that. But
right. Yeah.
We're getting close.
Yeah.
So today I have one of my amazing colleagues here at Keystone and someone who's been in my life for a very long time, Daniela J. And we're going to be talking about all sorts of things about our work and about what's happening in the community and anything else that we decide to get into, because you and I can chat it up quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So, Miss Daniela, what I wanted to do is, can you first just tell us about what you're doing right now here at Keystone and a little bit of history about what type of work you've done in the community?
Sure. Yeah. So currently my main focus here at Keystone is to support the trainees and associates that are working in all the different amazing places that they are working and the clients that they're serving as a clinical supervisor, clinical director type role with them.
Yeah.
And then, you know, whatever else comes from that, because now I'm here a lot more hours. You're seeing me a lot more now.
I know. It's really exciting to see you a lot more. It's so exciting to have you here, because that's, you know, we've only been talking about this for 20 years.
Right?
Literally 20
Yes.
years. Literally 20.
Oh, I know. It's been crazy.
It's been crazy.
But we're here.
That's right. We're here doing it. Tell us a little bit about, what were we doing? What were you doing at 22 in the work? Tell us a little bit of the history.
Let's see. So I was at Sonoma State, how I started into this field. I was at Sonoma State and needed like a little internship, or no, volunteer hours. It was not official internship. And I started volunteering at Verity in their prevention education department. Long story short, got hired on as staff. And that's when we started moving and grooving.
Yeah, that's back when Verity was called something else.
Yeah, it was United Against Sexual Assault, UASA.
Yeah, UASA.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So UASA and RUP, Roseland University Prep, were collaborating among all other agencies to do work with youth. That's sort of where we connected.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Is I called you because I got a call as a school-based social worker, and they were like, "Hey, Erica, do you know some people who can talk about some really hard subject areas for education for our youth?" And I was like, let me see if I can call some people. And I called you, and you showed up at the high school. And I think about that. We were very, very young, and we were being given a lot of amazing responsibility and power to teach youth about their bodies, their minds, their spirits, how to take care of themselves, how to have healthy relationships, all the things.
Yeah, it was odd at that, like reflecting back, it's odd because I was still trying to figure all that out, right? Still kind of. But I remember not just working with the youth, but I had like some parent groups too, which now blows my mind that I was able to talk to Latino women and men about some of these topics that are coming up for their kids. And that was that was pretty powerful.
Yeah,
but
we were
also wow.
We were trusted. We were trusted. We were trusted. I think the elders of our community saw something, and they were like, "Okay, yeah, we trust them, so let's go." And then after Verity, you went to TLC.
Yeah. Well, before Verity, or before that jump, I think it was a conversation that we had, and you're like, Daniela, when are you going to go get your master's? Just go and do that.
When I lovingly talked you into graduate school. I've done that for a couple people. I do. I think you might
be known a little bit for that.
Yeah,
I was like,
well, because
maybe.
That education is that access, unfortunately, in some ways, 100%. To the seats at the table.
Yeah.
So, I talked you into going to school.
So it was like a little loving push.
Okay. Well,
loving push. I was in my master's in social work program, and knowing that I wanted a change from there to see what's next, then I ended up in another nonprofit that was focused on foster care, AFS. And so that's where I also kind of grew up a lot more in what social work is, what mental health work is, and how it can look, and all the different ways, serving youth like 0 to 21 and foster parents. They were called foster parents at the time. Now they're resource parents because we like to change words and language.
I mean,
branding is important.
Marketing matters. So wait, you just taught me something. Okay, they're now called resource parents.
They're resource parents in California. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's good to know for everyone out there. We've shifted in California from foster parents to resource parents. Okay, good to know.
And yeah, I was there for several years, I think almost 8. Then I went to TLC, Child and Family Services, that is another similar organization doing foster care, but also some more mental health work. They were expanding their mental health services. I have a residential home, a school, an NPS, non-public school. So I was doing some of that while getting connected here with Keystone, doing some supportive, again, trainees and associates.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that I'm excited to talk to you about, because I do think that you and I, coming from a social work background in our education, is, I mean, at least when we were in graduate school for our master's in social work, it was much rarer to have a master's in social work degree in Sonoma County.
Yeah.
It was, I can think, there was a couple early meetings with my master's in social work that I went to that I was the only social work degree person in the room.
Yeah.
And I bring that up because I do think that the perspective of social work and how we're trained and what our programs are like is a different flavor than some of the other master's degrees that exist, and that you can become a clinical mental health provider, but it's not required that you become a clinical mental health provider. Yeah, and I think that that's something that when you and I are talking about supporting people who are now coming into the work, the social work perspectives are now kind of across the board in the degrees, which is really interesting that there's a shift in how we're looking at, you know, all the important but like buzzwords like whole person, self-determination, starting where the client is at. Yeah. How do you sit in discomfort when your clients are maybe making decisions that are not the decision that you would make? All of those perspectives, especially in clinical mental health care, where I feel like when you and I were starting to enter like licensure and all of that diagnostic process, it was very clinical and like that rigid kind of non-human centered way.
Right. That one space, like one room,
one box,
one box
on a piece of paper, one big box.
Yeah.
One big box. What would you say is some of your observations or favorite pieces so far of like thinking about how social work is being brought into human services in general? I would say maybe regionally, like in Sonoma County, but also to how you see it influencing the mental health space.
Well, I mean, I think to your point that it's in many ways feels creative, but it's in many ways, like you and I have grown up, it's not. I mean, you're doing mental health and social work not in a therapy room. I mean, you can, but there's so many different ways, from just connecting with a client in out in the community, out in even from the beginning of the front desk, like that, just all of that is social work, connecting with clients, not only seeing one aspect of their struggles, challenges, or identity. It's the whole thing, that you're kind of trying to pick up on what is it that they need and what can you serve them with, when you know there's so many things that might be going on. Might be housing, food insecurity, and past trauma, and like current relationship issues, and just parenting. It's like the works, right? That is happening. And the exciting piece is to know, I think it's that it's not limited to just a certain amount of people that can do this work. That there's expanding it to like, well, no, I think they have some skills. Like, okay, if we were talking about degree or education as access, but I think that even is changing right now.
Yeah,
in a whole,
as it should.
In an exciting way. Like you talk about what's exciting. Like, whoa, some of the people, like if you think about schools, who's in the know at a school? Who's in the know? It's the front desk office.
Oh yeah.
Personnel.
Oh yeah. Whoever runs the front.
Yeah, they are. They know.
Oh yeah.
Who the parents are coming, the kids. You know, if Miguel and Jose are in a conflict today, and then tomorrow they'll be best friends, and then like some of the history of like, did they eat at school or at home? Like they know it all. They're doing social work.
They are.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah. That this looking at social work through so many different points of access and people. And it's all good. It's all a good thing.
Ooh, goodness. I think about how you and I have had a conversation with our team and, out in the community around social work or change makers in communities, and that we have professionalized social work in such a way that it has become somewhat, in some ways, like removed from some of the community-based work that exists. Because I think when, at least I talk about my family, I think about how many of my family members were social workers, but that was not their title, right? You know what I mean? I had, grandmothers teaching people English in their garage, and I had great-grandmothers who were midwives, and I had uncles and grandfathers who were helping small business owners, build. I mean, like all of these types of different things, people's ways. Churches, or, how they were practicing their faith. And then we could talk about art and music and all of the amazing ways. But that's all under this very broad, amazing umbrella of like community-based social work.
Right.
And you and I are in a space right now where we're training people coming into this field where we want to expand access to people so that they can enter the field sooner, right? Like you and I literally, think about how much school. Yeah. So much school. So much. Which was great. I don't regret going to school, but it was a lot of school. And how do we invite more people from the community to do the work and not necessarily have to be in school for like as long? Right. Or if you are going to be in school for a long time, why are you doing it? And we've got people who we're supporting right now who are coming into the work who are in like the thick of the professionalizing system of education. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Do you have some opinions about maybe some of the positives and the challenges that you notice and experience, like as a teacher, a mentor, and like doing the clinical supervision work?
Yeah, I think it works for the folks that it works for, right? I think it's I've known and I've worked with some of trainees and associates that it sometimes also becomes an identity because it's been so long. Like, what am I going to do without school? Because they've been in it for that long. So to your point of like, what's the end goal, or what is the next goal? What are some of the things? How are you taking these learnings and applying? Because I think it's also that some of the education or the courses might not always be so applicable to the work that you'll end up doing. And some of the work that you're doing, it's like, wow, it would have been really great to have some teaching on this. Or, it used to be the joke around like social work, it's because I don't like math or whatever. Budgeting is a really important part to this, like huge if you're going to be in any sort of administrative level. And not even that, just understanding where your place in the work and how your role is funded or how your organization is funded and how all those pieces work is important, but we don't get taught that.
Yeah, no, that would be a funny class or training to think about as like social work math. or human services math.
Yeah.
Like we don't know that we could have a class. I mean, I bet you a lot of people would show up because, I mean, how would you know? Everything from how people work in their jobs to how we fund what we do. Yeah, it is interesting to think about the stereotypes of the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think too that we have people who are either have lived experience or are earning an associate's degree from the JCs or bachelor's degrees or master's degrees or licensure. And having that full spectrum of our team here at Keystone is also really interesting to the collaborative learning space that happens, that people have access to each other in a different kind of way. And I do feel like when I was being trained that there was a lot of siloing of people based on their backgrounds or whatever degrees that they had.
Yeah.
And another person I always thought about wherever I was working, there were the people who worked, I always just said front of the house. Whoever the front of the house people are, super important. And then there are also just any role that got to hold the clients or the patients or whoever you were working with like the longest. Because there's also like this piece, right, of like the specialist comes in and they do whatever they do. And then there's the people who hold them after that.
Yeah.
And in social work and as an organization and thinking about community-based work, we're now definitely in a place of like, okay, now what, right? So we do some things for people, but then like where are they supposed to go next and for how long and who's going to do it? And I do think that's shifting the mental health and social work conversation because we're not saying that we're going to fix people anymore. And you and I grew up, whether it was said or not said, it was definitely implied that there was like a clock and that people needed to be fixed within a certain amount of time because it was going to run out. And so you and I were always working on a clock. Paperwork, sessions, time. Yeah. And there's still some clock culture in it. But it's not the same kind of clock in terms of like what does continuums of care look like? Like that sentence didn't. I feel like we're talking like 20 years ago was like 500 years ago, and it wasn't really 500 years.
But sort of in social work time, maybe.
It's like literally, it's so, and we now have things like telehealth and other types of base services for access that we're coming into. I'm asking and saying what I'm saying because I think about you sitting in spaces with the amount of people who are coming into the work. And what are you thinking or just I guess like wondering about in terms of like preparedness is maybe an odd word, but like how are you feeling about people coming into the work? Like where are you feeling like, oh, okay, yeah, we're doing this pretty well and how we're preparing people, and then where are some areas where we need some work, right? Because the systems that train people, whatever they are, like we need feedback too.
Yeah. That's a good question, good reflection in my mind. I think there's a range, obviously. I kind of, when you said like, we have to fix people at a certain time, it's like, oh, ick, such an ick feeling around that. And so I'm glad we're moving away from that. And I think what is still sort of coming up a lot for folks is the systems piece is still a shocker. Like it's still shocking when the first conflict or the first challenge that they're trying to help a client through, it comes up as like, but why isn't this working? But why is the system so set up in this way? Or barriers after barriers that like we are trying to break down, but that there's bigger systems that are still putting those up, and so folks are really. It's shocking still to them. So I think trying to prepare them a lot more for that is something to help sustain the work. And I always talk at the beginning of my supervision relationship with anybody of like, well, this is the burnout is real. Burnout happens, and we're trying to avoid that, because the worst part would be to lose social work, mental health, community workers before they're, haven't even started.
No, agreed. No, I mean, I just, we've had our first 3 weeks of like back to school for everybody, right? So everybody's back to school, and whatever that means, or being trained in something. And I think about that level of, you are, as a provider, you're living your own life and doing all the things that you're doing. So you're in your own systems that you're trying to work and manage for your life, while trying to support people in their systems.
Yes.
And you're being asked a lot to make decisions, or to have a plan, or some level of like organization or clarity of like what to do next. And I do think that's a shift too in mental health care, that the clinical mental health provider is being asked, and in some ways like demanding, a much broader scope of thinking about what's going on with the people that they're supporting, than I would say kind of old school traditional clinical mental health, where you were like diagnosed for something, right, that was treatable, right? And the idea with treatment, which is a word we still use, which is interesting to me though, is like treatment has a clock, right? Like you're not supposed to be treated forever. Like that's not really the plan. And I don't think you need all services necessarily forever, but there's this idea, right, that treatment was for a specific thing. And, right, like the number one clinical mental health diagnostic code in the United States is, I think, don't totally quote me, but I'm pretty sure it's like F.33, which is like depressive, moderate to severe depressive disorder, right? And so if that's the code that we're using the most, and then we're meeting with folks, and you and I giggle because we have to sometimes, or we'll just maybe cry the whole time. But people come in and they're like, I'm having these symptoms, and we're like, yeah, and we ask them questions about their life and like what's going on. And we're trying to teach people to think through what is impacting how people are feeling.
Right.
Which is different than some of the mental health training, at least I got early on, where you treat the diagnosis.
Right.
As if the client is solely responsible.
Right.
Like they are solely responsible for being able to like repair themselves. With you as the facilitator of the provider, but like that's your job, is to like get them to fix themselves, which is different than we are training and supporting people now.
Yeah, and that is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really great. I'm excited about it that we're not doing as much, we're not trying not to do that, as little as possible, even though the system wants us to in some ways.
Right, but we go back to like these other layers and systems in place, like, of course you're going to be depressed and stressed and sad. There's these like global pandemic that we just went through, like so much unrest, uncertainty, and none of those things you can control. To your point, like we can't put the onus on the individual to fix this, or even the clinician or the worker. Like there's legitimate reasons for people to feel or respond the way that they are, and
how are we going to help them?
Yeah, how do we help them?
I also,
show up for them.
A piece that I think that you bring up often that I appreciate too is that the body's response, like reminding people that like we're also a body, right? Yeah. Where a lot of our work as a social worker or a clinical mental health provider like can be really focused on, like, I would just joke, but it's like the head, right? Like what are you thinking? What are you doing? What choices are you making? Right? A lot of head stuff, a lot of head. And you do a really important job, too, of just reminding people who are doing the work and the clients that we're serving that some of it, too, is just your body's response to being alive. Like right. It's not complicated, per se, but that people don't have an awareness
of
that. And I think, what about that do you notice in the people we're training and supporting and like their responsiveness to that? How do you think that's going in terms of their learning? Because in school, we're getting better at it.
Yeah, I think we are.
We're getting better, but it's still...
I think this school is getting better at talking about it, but also the stress of school, like the stress of life is still happening. So trying to acknowledge that, yeah, pay attention to your body. And we're also asking you to do all these things too. And you know, to your point of, people have this idea of like, get through school, get through these hours. Like there's so much going to the next that they're losing that in the moment, connecting with what's happening, paying attention to their body. I think it's happening a lot sooner, but it's still sometimes after the fact.
I don't know if you necessarily talk about it this way, but it's something I think about when you do speak about what we're doing in the work is sacrifice. Mm-hmm. I think that you do a really good job of bringing that up in a lot of different ways, because that is something I know when you and I, in our lovely little 20s, were talking about that nobody was really acknowledging the sacrifices that we were making to be in the work. Right. And there's a lot of sacrifices that people make to do this type of work. And I don't know, what do you think about all the sacrifices that we ask people to make, or even sometimes demand?
Yeah, the demand piece is, I think, really something to examine and to look through. And again, right, it's changing. There's some positives. When I was doing my internship or hours, none of that was compensated in any sort of way other than you're going to get your degree if you do this.
I worked so for free, like 100% free.
So much.
So free.
Yes. Free labor.
Free. I mean, it is 100% free.
Right. And right, talk about sacrifice.
I mean, just a little sacrifice, a little exploitation. Yeah, totally free.
All of that.
Yeah. Which is wrong, 100% wrong.
And it needs to stop. Glad that it's shifting. Yeah. So glad it's shifting. Mm-hmm. But even again, still the idea that for so many of us, we're going through school and also doing an internship and trying to hold down a job. I went to school with people having babies in the middle of that. I'm still floored by people that were in grad school having babies. Just the idea of how do you juggle all these different identities? And we did. There was
figure it out.
You figure it out. There's like a timing piece to it, right? Like you want to get through all these things. And I think it's great for those that were able to be in it, but I don't know if it always has to be that way.
I think that you and I are also noticing that we have a generation too of people coming into the work who are not going to do it the same way we did, that they are learning from the providers before them to have better boundaries, because people are like, well, why did you do that way? I'm like, I didn't really know there was another choice. The people before me were telling me that this is the way it is. And I listened, I didn't know any better. And I think that people coming into the work now have people like us who are like, no. Okay, you at least need this. Yeah. Like at a minimum, you need this. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like setting some floor, right? Yes. Like there was no floor.
There wasn't.
We at least are trying to help and set up a floor. And I think about that in terms of people entering the work, but also what it does for our clients and the people in the communities that we're serving. I think we're getting to show up a little bit in a different way. Yeah. Because we're trying to shift the sacrifice conversation a bit in terms of what providers are going to get out of their care and systems in the work.
Yeah. And to the extent their clients, to your point, too. Yeah. Right?
I mean, the part that's funny, though, Daniela, is you and I still to this day at least have 2 jobs. You're laughing. But sometimes you and I you and I have 3 jobs.
Yes. True.
And that's it's hard to undo the systems internally.
Okay, like, you're saying we're allowing, or not allowing, but celebrating those that are not having to do all the things we had to do growing up in this field. And I think it's important to be able to continue to celebrate it and not go into that narrative like, well, I never got paid for the work. Yeah. Like, being able to balance that, because some of that was the narratives of like, I have to say yes, or I'm not good enough, or I have to get to the point of burnout. That's how I show that I am really showing up in this work.
Yeah, I mean, that was like that still exists in some places, that you have to go to the extreme in order to be valued in the work. Yeah, that's interesting that you say it that way, because I do think that we, as, I guess now we're like getting to like that space of, we have a generation of providers who are retiring. Like, there's a lot of people who are leaving the field. They're all done, and we appreciate you for everything that you have done. And now we're coming into this space of like, how are we going to facilitate like what's next? And there are people who are still having lots of feelings about pay for placement, for example. Like, that's a movement in the state of California around like no unpaid internships. Yeah. Like, that shouldn't be allowed, right? That shouldn't exist. There's also people who have feelings about what degrees you need for what jobs. Right? Like, there's lots of interesting conversation going on right now around like, what do you really need a master's degree for? What jobs do you need that for? And I think it's because there are people in college who are asking this question around like, do I need more school, or do I need to like go do the work and learn in the work versus continuing being in school? And there's feelings about that too. And then there's also the feelings of people being like, I shouldn't have to go to school. Like, I don't know if I need to go. I have all of this lived experience. Like, why? Or can you teach me on the job? Why do I need to go to school? So you and I are also sitting in all those places.
All those places.
With all of those conversations. And how are you, and not like necessarily feeling about each topic, but how are you feeling about being in that space of like helping with the facilitation of those conversations?
I feel excited about it because I think it's not a one or the other. It's all of those. I think the biggest part that I want to be in and support is the folks who, wherever they're at and whatever their journey, of being able to like recognize you're doing the work and feel confident in the work. Because I think there's so many people that have either a lived experience or have been growing up in this field, and that narrative of, no, well, I can't do that, or I'm not doing that because I didn't get the education, limits them and limits their confidence to be in it, when in fact, no, you are doing the work. You're supporting that person. You've been helping them connect to these resources, and you're still sitting through their dysregulation and managing it well. No, you don't have a master's. That doesn't mean you can't be doing this work. And then there's those that are in straight out of their degree that have this, like, how can I do this? I haven't had all the experience. Well, you've got some of those skills that you learned that we can apply them. It's like that confidence. I call it like leaning into your clinical gut or your social work gut. It's okay to listen to it and be in it and grow it.
Ooh, there are people though who are maybe going to listen to this podcast and be like, Erica and Daniela are, talking about like some of, they would consider the deprofessionalizing, right? Because we got to talk about it. Well, I was going to be negative about something where I think you and I are actually trying to say it more as like making it broader, like having like more, more people being able to join the human services provider party. 100%. Like, we want more people to come.
Yes.
And that when you talk to the communities that we're serving, it's also too how we want to work with different communities in different ways. And you're going to need lots of different types of people doing the work. And there's more than one way to do it, and there's more than one role. But there are people who are not comfortable, I guess I would say, with what
have some opinions about it. Concerns.
I guess concerns.
Yeah.
Maybe there are concerns. And I keep wondering, like, what the concern really is. And I think there's this piece around, like, somebody asked me, like, straight up, like, well, don't you feel like that devalues the degrees you've earned? And I was like, ooh. Mm-hmm. I was like, interesting, as if I earned the degrees just to have value. Like, that's what my degrees hold. Like, all the degrees, like, hold my value as a provider. And I was like, that is it was a rough question to hear. Because I feel like I got degrees because I really like going to school. Yeah. Like, I like going to school too much. I mean, it's too much. I really like going to school. But that's not everybody's jam.
Right.
Like, but I didn't. Yeah. And I wanted seats at tables, which is another thing that I wanted.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting way to, like, think about value. That the value of our providers sits solely in the degrees that they earn. And I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that.
I mean, I can see that a little in the ongoing conversation around title protection for social workers, right? Protection. Like this whole thing that has been going on for years. I think of it now, how we're changing this landscape to not be in silos. I think that's what has been the problem in the past of, if there's people working and doing their own thing without having community, having connection, having check-in and accountability with the people that they're doing this work with, that can be a concern, because who knows what they're saying and engaging in. But that's when so much silo was the norm. Now, I think there's room for so many people at the table, so many different voices, if we maintain the community to support and to build up. My degree, all my little letters behind my name, that's not being challenged by other people coming into the work. Like, no, bring them in, bring it on. Yeah, let's do this work, because there's a lot to be done.
And this idea that you and I want to be challenged, which is, I don't think everybody has that. Not everybody feels like you and I about that. Mm-hmm. You and I like being challenged. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the part, too, that we're bringing to the work, is reminding people coming in, like, no, ask that question.
Yeah. Ooh, that's spicy.
Yeah,
let's talk about
let's ask that question.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Right.
And that, I don't feel like was something that happened as much even 10 or 20 years ago, that we were supposed to model the people before us, like almost carbon copy. Yeah. And now we're asking people to do the work from their perspective, which is harder in some ways, because there's no cookie cutter, and there's no one way to do it, and that's, I think, hard. And it's definitely going to be hard for the systems, because the people coming in are asking lots of questions.
They are.
Lots and lots of questions.
And I think it's okay not to have the answers, too. I think that was the other piece of, don't ask it because I don't have the answer and I don't want to look dumb. Right?
You and I are very okay with you and I are very okay with not having the answer.
That is an amazing question, and I think we should explore it. And I don't have the answer. And go you for thinking it, right? Like that should be celebrated, to challenge our status quo in this work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Challenge our status quo.
Yeah.
Yikes. Look out, y'all. Daniela and I are coming, because we're going to be coming for you. Because I think that the status quo is part of the reason why we don't have enough providers. Mm-hmm. We just don't. We don't have enough. And there's so many people who want to do amazing things in the world, and they should be invited and celebrated. And and I think one of the things that I love about just the conversations in community-based work or social work, or just different ways of doing it, is going back to the community piece, right? Like, people used to ask, like, well, what did they do before social workers? And I was like, you had neighbors. Yeah. People were like, what do you mean? I'm like, you had neighbors.
You had neighbors.
You had your neighbors. You had most people had some type of faith-based community that they were a part of. You knew your town or wherever, or
your people, your village,
right? Your village. Like you knew your village. Whoever your village was, you knew. And that is what community-based and like social work is supposed to be about, is that you know your community.
Right.
And I do think that being brought into the medical land is great. And it also brings up tougher conversations around like, what are we doing because we know it's the right thing for the community versus it's what the system's status quo is.
Right. What the system has been set up for. And it's not this.
It's not this.
Idea of being creative or not, right? Like going back to some of the ways that was done before with community.
So what would you tell your 20-something self, like before entering, let's just say graduate school? I go, you know, if you could like have a little time machine. I always think about the visual, like if I could have like left myself a postcard somewhere to like pick it up. Like not a lot, just like what would the postcard say to myself, like coming in to the work? What would you tell yourself?
So many things. So many things are coming to mind. Like one, not being afraid. Because I think I lived in a lot of fear back when I was that age of what could be. That I promise it'll actually also be fun. You can work and have fun.
Don't be afraid, and it can be fun.
And it can be fun. You know, well, because this is, it's hard work and it's heart work, and it should also have an element of joy. Come on now, we're working with people. Like going back to the idea of that, our community, the neighbors, the like your hair salon lady and butcher or whatever it was, you had some good times while you cried it out about what was happening. Like that's, and you got support from, my faucet's leaking. Can neighbor come over? Like I didn't have to go find a plumber.
Yeah.
I had friends.
You had friends. Yeah. Don't be afraid. It can be fun.
Don't you love all my quotes?
I do. I think we need to
all my isms.
I think there's like a t-shirt line in the mix just called Daniela's t-shirts. And I'm being straight up because it's important, and I think we've sometimes just overcomplicated things a lot. And so it's important to remember that, you know, when we are putting out even content like we're putting out right now, is like having conversations for people, knowing that we want and invite people to come do work with us in the community if you want to, and come to the table, and we want you here. And there might be people who say you're not welcome, but we're not those people.
Right.
And there are people who have your back and like want to support you coming in. And so don't be afraid, and we're going to have fun is a good invitation.
Yeah.
That I'm happy that's I want all the things. I do. I just think it's important.
Yeah.
One last question I have for you is, do you think that teaching and what you're doing right now is bringing you joy? And if so, how is it bringing you joy?
Yeah, 100%. It brings me joy. It goes back to what you were just saying. It is exciting to see so many people in this work that are not my style, that have a population that might not always be my jam, but are doing incredible things, and being a small part of their journey to feeling confident in what they're doing, because they're doing some really good work. That's so exciting to me. That's like, I love that part. That's my jam.
That's your jam.
That's my fun part.
You guys, can you tell Daniela and I are maybe going to need to throw a party? I feel like that's what needs to happen.
I think so.
It might be called Don't Be Afraid and Come Have Fun.
Yeah.
That would be the name of the invitation. I'm into it. I appreciate you coming today.
Yeah.
I know your time is busy. We're really happy. We'll keep highlighting all of the amazingness going on here. So thank you so much for coming. All right.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to Key to the Bridge, a podcast brought to you by your friends at Keystone Therapy and Training Services. I'm your host, Erica Bosque. Key to the Bridge is recorded and produced by Jeff Henderson and Brian Henderson. This is a podcast for everyone.